Warning, this episode contains explicit language and drug use. All names mentioned are innocent until proven guilty in the court of law. Listener discretion is advised. Before we dig into today's episode, I want to take a moment and talk about something close to my home, my journey into podcasting. Dog with a Bone is my first season, and I am beyond grateful to have teamed up with James Basinger and Sasquatch Productions. If you're into deep dives, real boots on the ground investigations, and the kind of storytelling that leaves no stone unturned, you'll want to check out James's own podcast, Hide and Seek. He's currently working on season 4, but if you haven't yet, I highly recommend starting with season 1 through 3. They're all out now. And welcome back to Dog with a Bone podcast. This is episode 4, In the Heat of the Night. Please make sure to like and follow us on Dog with a Bone Facebook and Instagram page to join in on the investigation as we move through the season. I would love to hear your thoughts on the episodes previously and the ones to come. You can also subscribe to Dog with a Bone podcast on Spotify or wherever you listen so you don't miss an episode. If you have listened to the last 3 episodes, you probably find yourself with a lot of questions on things that do not add up. And I'm with you, especially given how Bernie was found dead the next day. We know Bernie was alive when Bo left with Eric and returned to Steffens. Here's what Bo remembers.
I never went past the living room. Bernie was with the cops in the kitchen area. Like when you walk in, you're in the living room. Kitchen is back to like the right, kind of, you can kind of see the kitchen, but not really. I don't remember if it stepped down or what. It's been a long time ago. I didn't go past the kitchen. Bernie was in the kitchen, I believe, talking to detectives. I don't remember the whole gist of it, but anyways, we left. Eric and I left to go to Steffens to pick up Jackie, which was his sister. Mm-hmm. And we had called her, told her we were coming. She was outside, like, waiting on us. When we pulled up, put her in the car, went back to Bernie's. Lights were off, doors were shut, cops were gone within freaking 10 minutes. Knocked, nobody answered. We left.
So within 10 minutes of, because Bernie's house is pretty close to Steffens, from my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, it's on... Yeah. I think 4th Street, maybe. Literally, from all that time, we were gone 10 minutes.
How do you know it was 10 minutes?
I'm just estimating because of how far it was from his house to the bar. We had called Jackie to tell her what was going on and that we were coming to get her, so she was already out front waiting. When we got to Steffens, we didn't even get out of the car and go in to get her. She just got in the car. You know, we was like, we're on our way, blah, blah, blah. And the only other thing that I remember is we tried to get them to let Bernie go with us, and they said no, and he had to stay there or whatever. And he was like, it's all right, whatever. And so we left to go get Jackie. I don't even know why we were going to get Jackie. I don't even know what the purpose of that was.
Bernie was there with the cops.
Yep.
They were in the kitchen talking. And what were they discussing?
I don't know because I never went past the living room.
Could you hear them at all?
No.
Was Bernie upset?
I'm going to say he was upset because his house just got broken into. I don't know if he was upset based on conversations that were being said in the kitchen. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't be able to differentiate if it was being upset for one reason or another.
So when you went back and the cops were gone, Bernie's whole lights, he didn't come to the door, you're knocking.
He even went around and knocked on, I did not. Jackie went around and knocked on the side of the house, like where his bedroom was, and nothing. And we left.
And you couldn't see inside or anything?
No.
So something changed very quickly.
Very quickly, within 10, 15 minutes. Like I said, I don't remember exactly how many minutes we were gone, but I can tell you we left, we called her, she walked outside the bar. We did not even go in to get her. And by the time we got back there, cops were gone, lights were off, place was dark.
Do you remember when I mentioned in a previous episode how organized Bernie was and kept his files up to date? That it would become important later? We're now here. I heard that Bernie had a black book where he kept names or information. Do you know anything about that?
I just know that I heard about the black book. I heard the black book was in the safe. I heard that that was one of the big reasons that everybody was freaking out was because of this black book. I'm going to say it's probably who owes him money, who's this, who's that. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've heard about it, but never seen it or anything like that.
Do you think that this could be the motive? Was someone after the names in the book? Or did they want to ensure no one else saw their name, that they killed Bernie over it? Bernie was so organized. I am sure he had everyone's name he's ever conducted any transactions with written in there. As I wrap up my call with Bo, she clearly remembers leaving Bernie with the cops and taking Eric back to Steffens to get Jackie. Within 10 to 15 minutes, Bo says they returned to Bernie's house and it's dark. There's no answer. Remember Jackie from our last episode? I want to now share more details with you of our conversation as she walked me through that night and the next day when her and Eric found Bernie.
So when I got off work, it wasn't until 2:30. When I closed the bar down, I went over and hello, I thought we just had one hell of a thing going on over here. It had only been a couple, maybe an hour and a half. I went by. I don't even know if it was that long. And Bernie's house lights were out. It was all dark. No cops around. I beat and beat and beat and beat on that door. I went around to the front door. I went around to the back door. I beat on every window in the house. And nobody would answer. So we go back to my apartment, which is at the time was over here by Marysville High School, and I called the police department, and I want to know if they have John Burnside in custody.
What time was that?
Right after the bar closed. Right, had to have been in between 1:30 and 2. And they said they did not have him in custody, so we went back over. We beat and beat and beat and beat on the door because I needed the keys in Nick's truck. He was fuming. Me, Nick, and Eric, all three went back over again. And lights are out, house was dark, nothing. Nobody around, not a light in the house. And his little dog, Mindy, if somebody's being on that door, that little dog would have barked. She would have barked.
So the dog wasn't there?
She was there, but she never barked.
Jackie, is that unnormal? I mean, if you knock on a door, a dog's going to bark.
Mindy's barking. She was a little itty-bitty little scruff. Right. But that little barking bitch, oh yeah.
Okay.
She wouldn't even look like if me and Bernie was sitting next to each other on the couch, I'd reach over to touch his leg. That was her daddy.
She was very protective.
Yep, so, we all ended up going back to the house. Like, they say they don't have him in custody. He's not answering the door. What the fuck do we do, So, we go to bed. I have to open up the bar at 11 the next morning, so I have to be there between 9:30 to stock the coolers and everything. So I get everybody up, and I'm like, well, come on. I said, before I go to work, let's go over there so Nick can get his truck or whatever. Same thing. We beat. We bet it was daylight then. And If you walk in Bernie's door, it was his living room. It went down into his kitchen, and off to the right, he had his bar. He had a little bar room. Well, he had just put in central air, and there had been a tall heater, like a little gas heater somebody would put in for extra heat or whatever. And it was built into the wall. Well, he had that taken out, so there was a little box where you could see in his bedroom, and then I went around to his back room, and I could see his tube socks. I could see his socks hanging off the bed. And I beat. I'm like, Eric, he's not answering. I'm like, he's scared he was in trouble, you know, like he killed himself or whatever. I'm like, oh my God. So I didn't have a cell phone. Eric didn't have a cell phone. I'm thinking we might have used Nick's that night. Anyway, so what we did was we went back to Stefan's because I was supposed to open. I had keys. I went in and I used Stefan's Lounge's phone to call the police department. And I'm like, well, I don't care whether you say you have him in custody or not. Something's not right. My truck's in the driveway. He won't answer the door to give me my keys. Somebody's going in there, whether I break a window and go in or somebody's going in there. But listen, there's no fucking police recordings of our conversation with them. None. There's no recording of me calling in there. Well, how did they know to go over there that morning? Because I went to Stefan's Lounge and I called. But anyway, so the cops came and opened up the door. I think it was like big, fat Jerry Wessel or whoever, and Coots showed up. And anyway, Eric followed him in. They let Eric follow him in, and I started following him in, and my brother pushed me back on my ass. He said, get out. Get out, Jackie. He said, you don't want to see this. And they told us all to leave. And we left, and we waited for the newspaper article. And the newspaper article said that there was a safe found with so much cocaine, and there was gift certificates and things that he had bought for his sisters and his nieces for Christmas, but all these drugs and everything. And I'm sure there was. I'm positively sure there was. That's what Vern did. You know, he had a small little group. We all partied, but he was not no major big-ass drug dealer.
Right.
I'm sure there was things in his safe, but when the cops slammed my brother up against that TV and he said, the safe is open and empty, what is the combination to your safe? And he wouldn't tell him. And that's when they started slamming Eric around. But Timo got Eric out of there. And then all this stuff happened. But I do know for a fact, because I'm still in contact with Nick, he could probably tell you everything in the night. Same thing. We went home. We went over there. He wouldn't answer the door. When I went to work the next morning, we went in. I could see the edge of his tube socks hanging over the side of the bed. And I'm like, Eric, he's not moving. He's not moving.
After my call with Jackie, I am left with more questions than answers. It really bothers me that just seeing his tube socks through a vent in the wall, that they decided he must be dead from suicide? Would this be your first thought? Why didn't they break down the door or window to see if he had a medical issue and needed urgent care? Why not go to the neighbor's house and call instead of driving back to Stefan's to call the cops? Maybe their response is what others would do as well. I was out bowling with the family and made a stop in the bar to ask the bartender and a customer what they would do.
So if you went to your best friend's house and you were there the night before and he was alive and doing well, but the cops were there was a break in his house, he's not answering his door, you come back the next morning and you see his socks hanging off the bed. All you see is his socks. You're knocking, you're banging, you're yelling. He's not answering, he's not moving. What do you do?
I would probably try to get into the house and see if I can revive him or something. And if I finally broke into the house and he's not moving, I would personally call the police and try to figure out what happened.
Right.
My personal opinion.
So you wouldn't leave him?
No.
You would break in?
Yes.
Because it's your best friend, he's not moving, to see if he's okay?
Oh yeah, most likely, yes.
Okay, thank you. Would you leave him?
No, because I think that something might be wrong.
So what would you do?
Get in the house.
Would you break in?
Yeah. Knock the windows out. Do what I got to do.
You wouldn't just leave and then call the cops?
No.
You would go in?
Yeah, I want to see what's... Then I'll call the cops.
Yep.
I need to know what I need to call them for. I'm not going to wait because the cops might take 2 hours to get there.
Well, and maybe he had a medical emergency.
Never
You
know.
can save him.
Because they had a heart attack.
Right. So
Never
you
know.
would break in with
Definitely.
that. All right. Thank you.
All righty.
I then also asked someone at my local gym for their response. Here's what they said they would do.
I would find any way I could to get in the house. And if I couldn't, then I would probably try to call a friend first. But I think I would call 911 eventually.
Would you leave him and then call somewhere?
No.
If you didn't have a cell phone, would you go to the neighbors or would you leave them and find somewhere else to call?
I would go to the neighbors.
But you would try to break in
Yeah, for sure.
because you would be what?
I would be worried.
Because he's not moving. Your friend's not moving.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm not overthinking, and their actions were not a, quote, normal response to the situation. Given people out in the community all agree they would break in. I continue to wonder, why didn't they break in? There has to be a reason behind why they didn't and left him to go call the cops from the bar. But what could it be? I add this to the board of questions for Eric. I hope Eric can explain his actions and thought process when I get back to Marysville on why he left his best friend there without knowing if he was okay. I decided my next call was going to be to Nick. In hopes of confirming what Jackie had told me regarding that night and the next day, a member of my team reached out to Nick, who stated he does not remember anything that would be helpful to the case and was not interested in speaking with me. He said that this should be left to the police. Well, the case has been with the police for 30 years. So why not me? I want to now share with you what happened when the cops arrived on scene. Once Bernie was found, Sergeant Nickel arrives, who was the assigned detective and at Bernie's house the night before. When I was speaking with Paul and Steve about the events after Bernie was found in regards to the investigation, they shared with me very exciting news that will turn this case upside down. Paul and Steve had gone into Sergeant Glenn Nickel's office the day after Bernie's murder to get more information on what happened. Paula brought with her a Fisher-Price recorder toy that was her son's to record the conversation. She sat the toy right on Nickel's desk and explained that she needed to record the conversation for her sister and mom in California. Smart woman. And he allowed it. And guess what? We have it. We have the cassette tape. Paula has cut this cassette tape from December 12th, 1993, in a safe place all these years, hoping one day it would be useful. Well, I almost fell out of my chair when she told me this, but nobody was really sure how it sounded or if it would even play. Paula had not listened to it in decades, so I scrambled to find something to play the cassette tape on. I purchased a recorder on Amazon and anxiously await its arrival. I keep checking the delivery date in anticipation for what we will hear, if anything. There was a lot riding on this cassette tape. The recorder arrives, and when I put the tape in, I take a big deep breath and hit play. It worked, and you can hear the conversation that is being had. Given you are all in the dog pound with me, I want you to hear the audio for yourself. We have cleaned up the audio as much as we could just to make it sound clear. Remember, this is a tape cassette from 1993. I think it turned out pretty good for being recorded on a Fisher-Price toy recorder. Shout out to Fisher-Price. The recording is about 2 minutes and 40 seconds long, and there are times where it is hard to hear what is being said. But I wouldn't leave you in the dog pound alone. I will help along the way. Here's Nickel.
Okay, what happened was last night about midnight we got a call that John called out here and saying that somebody broke into his house. It was apparent that somebody broke into his house. It's also apparent to us that they were after a specific thing and that they knew the house very well. He has an alarm system in his house. Right. You guys aware of that?
Yes. That's what I was going to ask you about.
Okay, they cut the wires on the outside, I guess, with that specific type of alarm system. Cutting the phone lines disables the alarm. And there's no trouble alarm. Some businesses will have, because their phone lines are trouble, have at least a trouble alarm go out to the company. That doesn't happen in this system he had. They knew where the horn was or alarm was, so once they defeated the alarm on the outside, I guess they just went in to make sure and broke the alarm inside the house too. Ransacked part of the house. They took a safe from his bedroom out the back and around the south side of the house where we found it. I don't think he and his friends had found that safe, and they thought the safe was gone, and that's why they called to report it to us. And then once I came through the front door next to the garage, there's an older door he doesn't use, is the main front door. And took it out back. What happened when we were looking through the house to see what was missing and talking to him about it. He had some drug paraphernalia, cocaine paraphernalia, little wrappers, plastic wrappers that had residue on it, and then little tops of little bags that they'd sell 8 ounces, which is an eighth of an ounce of coke. A few of them were on, and those were just laid out on top, like they'd just been put there.
Nickel explains why there was no trip call to ADT, the police, or Bernie when the wire was cut, because the alarm was not set up that way. But also, why would Bernie leave drugs out and call the cops for them to find? I don't know about you, but I remember when I was drinking underage and the cops were called and everyone runs to hide the beer cans. I can't see why Bernie would call the cops leaving drugs out, knowing they're going to come inside and look around.
Some of them were in a jar, kind of down with a bunch of little change and stuff. So it was obvious it was his. So I talked to him about that. He gave us permission to search his house for that. Still just consented to a search. And I asked him, I said, well, the safe's outside. Let's go open that safe. Because you and I both know what we're going to find in the safe. It's not safe there.
That big safe was his safe?
In the paperwork Bernie kept, there is a receipt showing Bernie purchased the safe only 3 weeks before the break-in.
That's his safe. This is safe. Excuse me. He was there forever.
Yes, he knows.
Okay, yeah, and he's relaxed that combination. So I'll just sit down here. I went and called the prosecutor and make sure everything I was doing was accurate. We had consent so we can find some triple beam scales with residue on it and a couple of those bags. I took him back in and explained to him the search, just open the safe, because the safe is definitely going with us. The guys, when you open it, we open it later, the fact that we're going to take the safe and I'll try and get it on if we need to open it. And I told him it'd be easy going with him. He's easy going with me, so he said, yeah, might as well. He went out and opened the safe. I asked him how much cocaine we were going to find in there, and he says, you'll see. What we found was 24 grams of cocaine, which is the way it was packaged. It was packaged in 1/2 gram containers and 4 or 8 balls, which is 1/8 of an ounce. I'm saying the price I know of it would have been about $2,000 worth of cocaine. He had about a whole bunch of loose change in there, $370 worth of just change. And then he had a couple sacks with a little bit more cash in it, totaling about $1,200 in cash. So we seized that and the triple beam scales and the paraphernalia in there. I asked him about who he thought was after his drugs. He didn't have any suspects. The other guy with him was a jerk. there what's his name?
Nickel didn't seem to recall Eric's name, which I find interesting given Eric had a history with the police.
Doesn't ring a bell. We know the, of course, we just know first names.
Oh, which is Eames Creek.
Golf course? Yes, that's the one he's got up the house.
Okay.
He didn't seem like a jerk here. I mean,
I think he was just a jerk towards us, or appeared to be a jerk towards us just because of the incident and whatever he was involved in. He'd been drinking a little bit. John, I talked to him about how much he'd been drinking and everything. He did have a Coke straw and didn't admit to doing any Coke or anything that night, but I'm sure he probably had a little bit. I don't know.
You mean a straw to smoke?
Yes. Yeah. Didn't have any Coke on it. He also so he had like 5 beers over a 3-hour period. So he wasn't really drunk.
He doesn't drink beer.
Really? That's what he said. He didn't appear real drunk.
This contradicted what MacGyver, who was the coroner of Union County, said in the Marysville Tribune. MacGyver gave a statement saying Bernie must have been drunk or high, which caused him to pass out and not claw at the bag. So, which one is it?
If somebody been drinking or something.
When he's drunk, because he stutters, he can't talk.
Okay.
Definitely. So he was talking, communicating, he wasn't bad.
Yeah, he had a couple other calls to that house. I guess I find out later the other officers have gone there where he's had problems with the alarm. Where he's been really intoxicated and can't get the alarm shut off or messed up the alarm.
Yeah.
And they've come over and met him then. So, like last time, he wasn't like that at all. So that's where we left it. We gathered the stuff up. His friends left.
What about, weren't you going to take him to jail or anything?
See, we weren't going to arrest him that night. Like I told him, we're being decent. It was an investigation type. We could have, right then and there arrested him for it.
Bernie had enough coke on site that per police code, anything over 20 grams is an automatic arrest. Bernie should have been arrested. Nichols said in a newspaper, quote, immediate arrest would have hindered the investigation into drug trafficking, end quote. I would think that arresting Bernie would have helped the investigation. Bernie may have made a deal and provided the information Nichols wanted to know, like where was Bernie getting the drugs?
It was my call, basically, from the prosecutor's office. Always likes to, if you don't have to put him in jail, he's got a job at Honda. He didn't appear to be a flight risk or any kind of risk. He seemed okay. When I left, I was the last one to talk to him, about 2 o'clock.
He didn't give you any suspects, any list of names?
No, he wouldn't say anything about that. It's somebody that he's dealt with, obviously. And then he knew he had the cocaine kept in there and knew about his alarm system. There's, I don't know how many number of suspects, and nobody will talk to now, I'm sure.
So you don't know who broke into the home?
Yeah,
but somebody did.
Yeah, I believe that. I know he wouldn't do that himself. But he didn't seem right to set it up. Set himself.
According to Nickel, Bernie was not aware that his safe had been stolen when he called the cops. But I still do not understand why they called the cops. The cops will ask what was in the safe.
Somebody was
What they used was a wheelbarrow to help them move the safe around. Now, 3 of us can pick that safe up enough to lift it up into a van and haul it here and lift it out. But then it pushed all right. In the house, you can push it all right. I say 2 people at least would have had to help lift that into the wheelbarrow and then move it around the side of the house where it looks like they got scared off or dropped it and got scared off then and ran.
And when he called you,
John coming home?
Yeah, anybody driving by, if they weren't expecting somebody, because they were visible to the street from where the safe was, right by a neighbor's house, between 2 houses.
when he called you, he wasn't aware the safe was out. He was just
Right. I don't think he knew the safe was there.
from the house.
I really doubt that he had called us if the safe was
safe
there.
was still there.
Now,
I think he
was there anything else
he didn't want to get caught with the drugs.
Anything else missing? You don't know.
His wallet. That's it. His wallet was laying on a dresser. He said.
He didn't have his wallet with him when he was out.
That's what I was
That doesn't
curious about. But he said, no, I had my wallet here. They went out just for about 3 hours. It seemed like from about 9 till midnight.
I do want to mention that John was found with Bernie's wallet, so it is possible that Bernie left his wallet at home.
John keeps his money in his wallet. I know well.
Yeah,
He always carries a wallet.
But
His
time of
wallet
death,
was
you
missing.
figured.
I'd say they can't really. You see in the movies or TV shows, they'll tell you a time of death between 1 and 2 a.m. or something like that. You really can't narrow it down that much. You really can't. But they'll narrow it down with these times. Somebody called down here. I'm not sure that it's even alone. One of the ladies I talked to today that works up at the bar, Jackie, a friend or something, she had called down here saying, I left keys in the apartment or in that house, and I wanted to get them, and I don't get any response.
Nickel confirms that they had gotten a call from Jackie, who could not reach Bernie, whose house he was just at for a break-in. Bernie is now not answering the door, and they do not go back to check on him. Nickel didn't arrest him because, quote, he wasn't a flight risk, end quote. But now that Bernie's not answering the door and you're not concerned enough to go check it out? I know I would, as I would be worried I screwed up and he took off. I would also worry if the people who wanted the safe came back to finish what they started. Arresting Bernie would have protected him as well, right? But let's hear Nickel's reasoning.
Basically, he said, well, he probably doesn't want to come back to the door thinking it's us or thinking it's or he's just asleep. But I would say within an hour or two.
Did Nickel just give the 1 to 2 hour time frame that he said can't be done and is only done in the movies? Roll back the tape.
They can't really, you see in the movies or TV shows, they'll tell you a time of death between 1 and 2 a.m. or something like that. You really can't narrow it down that much. You really can't.
Yep, he did. And my other question is, who the hell goes straight to bed after having the cops at your house and your house was just broken into? Bernie's adrenaline had to still be going, and he would know his friends' voices versus the cops.
After you left?
After we left about 2:05, right in there. I'd say within the next hour or two, he probably committed suicide.
Now, there was a plastic bag over his head.
Yeah, now that's the only part where it's going to be hard for family to really believe it.
You got that right.
If you don't want to believe it. I've seen it before, and I talked to a deputy a little while ago who had seen a movie within the last week where the same thing had occurred. And it showed it on the movie where I guess it was a lady in the coroner has the final ruling on deaths. Okay, on the investigation like that. And he's the one that says, yeah, it's suicide.
Nickel references the Heat of the Night episode that aired on Thursday, 2 nights before Bernie was murdered, not a while ago. Nickel is suggesting to the family that Bernie had gotten this idea from a TV show. I was not familiar with the show or episode, so I watched it. And I have to say, after watching the episode, I had a "are you kidding me" moment, that this is the example that Nickel provides the family of all the ways someone can end their life. Putting a trash bag over their head themselves is low on the list of common methods. If anyone else wants to watch, this episode is called Little Girl Lost. It aired December 9th, 1993. Do you find it ironic that Nickel says it's not like in the movies or TV shows for time of death, but then uses a TV show as an example of how Bernie decided to commit suicide? I do. But another big problem for me is Nickel assumes that this is where Bernie got the idea from, is this specific episode. Everyone that I have spoken to who knew Bernie do not recall him being a Heat of the Night fan. But okay, I hear all of you. Let's just say he did watch this show. He probably did not watch it on Thursdays. See, Honda got paid on Thursdays, which means Thursdays were party nights at the bar. I guess Nickel must have missed this part of the investigation. Nickel then walks Paula and Steve through what he believes is a suicide.
What he did, took a normal plastic kitchen garbage bag, just those little white ones, put it over his head, and then duct tape, which gray duct tape, and taped it around his neck. The reason you would think if it was somebody does that to try and suffocate you, think obviously you wouldn't do that yourself. Wouldn't be the quickest way and everything. But what you'd look for is his t-shirt, the same shirt and jeans he was wearing was neatly tucked in still. There's nothing on his hands where he struggled. And a bag like that, if you got any kind of force at all, you could rip it enough to get air in if you wanted to. Okay, even if, it'd be real difficult to kill somebody like that if you didn't already have knocked them out or something. Okay? So it's real obvious that it's self-inflicted.
Is anyone else confused with me? Is Nickel saying that Bernie could or could not kill himself with the bag? It sounds like he just acknowledged the only way this could have taken place was for Bernie to already be knocked out. Interesting word choice. But to just clarify, Nickel told Paula and Steve that Bernie knocked himself out, put the bag on his head, taped it around his neck, and then just went and laid down on his bed without trying to rip it off? Oh, let me also tell you, the duct tape was found in the hallway, and the scissors in his bedroom. Steve then moves on and asks Nickel if there were any signs of trauma to Bernie's body.
There was no signs of he didn't get hit in the head.
Yeah, there's no trauma to the head or anything. Nothing with no bruises, no marks on the arms, fingers, neck, just where the tape was, where he taped it.
This is where the tape ends, and I still cannot believe that after 30 years, this cassette tape had survived and still played. Since we have now heard from Nickel himself, I want to pivot to Dr. MacGyver. Dr. MacGyver was a family physician in Marysville and served as the coroner for Union County. MacGyver died in 2022 at the age of 80. Since I can't speak to Dr. MacGyver or have a cassette tape, I have to take what he said back in 1993 from the papers. Holly Zachariah was a reporter in 1993 who wrote articles for the Marysville Journal-Tribune. Holly had written a series of articles that we found as we digged further into his case. I reached out to Holly to get more insight into what she remembers. Holly retired years ago and closed that part of her life. She recalled the case but didn't keep any of her notes to speak to it. Holly wished me luck and hoped justice finally arrived. After reading Holly's articles, she asked the right questions and put pressure on Nickel, Coots, and MacGyver for answers. Here's a quote in the Tribune Holly wrote when she asked MacGyver about his inaccurate ruling of a suicide. Quote, MacGyver said his assumption of the suicide ruling was based on the following factors: position of the body, lack of signs of a struggle, and the chain of events leading up to the death, end quote. MacGyver's referring to the burglary. I didn't know coroners could make assumptions. Did you? I thought they worked with science and evidence on the body when issuing a manner of death. I should also let you know, MacGyver was not at the scene and just took Nickel's report. I asked around, and this was pretty common practice in 1993. MacGyver would not go to the scenes and would get report from the officers who were there. A big problem for me was MacGyver lied about being there. It was only later when people who were at the scene told Bernie's dad that MacGyver never showed up. If this is your standard practice, okay, but why did he lie about it? I would think once MacGyver laid eyes on Bernie's body, as the funeral home director did, he would raise flags that more investigation was needed. Unless, of course, he never laid eyes on Bernie's body. For MacGyver to mention, quote, no signs of a struggle, end quote, when Bernie had a massive bruise on the whole right side of his face is false. He also had bruises on his knuckles and scratches on his neck. But to be fair, providing an accurate assessment and manner of death would be hard when MacGyver did not do an autopsy, conduct blood work to determine if Bernie was intoxicated, but assumes that is why he didn't rip off the bag, and provided no time of death on the death certificate. I guess this is what happens when you go off assumptions. Someone almost gets away with murder. Next time on Dog with a Bone.
When I found out what had happened, that he committed suicide, I thought that's a joke. Who would not order an autopsy in that case? I mean, it's just that would protect them too. But Obviously there was a reason why they didn't want to do an autopsy.
Another thing, he told us to go in because somebody broke in and stole the safe. They could come back in and get his stereo and stuff like that. He told us to go in and get the stuff out of there.
Which it should be a crime scene.
We destroyed the
crime scene.
Dog with a Bone is hosted, investigated, produced, and written by Melissa Sandberg. Additional writing by Caitlin Sandberg. Edited by Jason Sandberg. Theme music by Alex Yukich. Dog with a Bone is a Sasquatch production.